The Great Chamber was the largest room ever built by any species in the galaxy. It stretched for miles in every direction. Floating platforms held delegates from 4,000 different worlds. Strange lights of every color filled the air. The sound of alien voices speaking in 100 languages created a constant hum. This was the Galactic Council. For over 100,000 years, it had ruled the stars. Every species that achieved space travel eventually came here. They came to join. They came to obey. They came to kneel. Today, a new species had been summoned. High Arbiter Zindalos floated at the center of the chamber on his crystal platform. He was ancient, even by the standards of his people. His body was thin and gray, with 6 eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. He had served as High Arbiter for 3,000 years. In all that time, no species had ever refused a council directive. He looked down at the small platform rising from below. On it stood 5 humans. They looked so fragile, so temporary. Their species lived for less than a century. They had only discovered space travel 200 years ago. They were children playing in a garden built by giants. The leader of the human group was a woman named Elena Vasquez. She had dark hair streaked with gray and eyes that showed no fear. She wore a simple black uniform. No decorations, no symbols of rank, just a small flag on her shoulder showing a blue and green planet. Zindalos spoke, and his voice filled the entire chamber. Translation devices carried his words to every ear. Humans of Earth, you have been summoned to answer for your crimes. You have expanded into the Orion Spur without permission. You have claimed worlds that belong to the Council. You have ignored 17 warnings to stop. Elena Vasquez stood perfectly still. She did not bow. She did not look away. We have prepared the Terran Compliance Accord, Zindalos continued. You will return 70% of your colonies to Council control. You will reduce your military fleet to defensive levels only. You will accept Council observers on your homeworld. You will pay tribute to the elder races for the next 10,000 years. A delegate from the Velkari Dominion floated forward. His species had ruled a quarter of the galaxy for 50,000 years. They were tall and powerful, with silver skin and 4 arms. He looked at the humans the way a giant might look at insects. This is generous, the Velkari said. Other species who defied us no longer exist. Accept these terms. Be grateful. The datapad containing the accord floated down to Elena's platform. She picked it up. The chamber fell silent. 4,000 species watched as she read through the document. She read every word. She took her time. Minutes passed. Then more minutes. Some delegates grew impatient. Others whispered to each other. Who did these humans think they were? Finally, Elena set the datapad down. She looked up at Zindalos. Then she looked around the chamber, at all the alien faces watching her. No, she said. The word was simple. The word was small. But it echoed through the chamber like thunder. Zindalos leaned forward. His 6 eyes blinked in confusion. I do not understand. Please repeat your response. I said no. Elena replied. Her voice was calm and clear. Humanity rejects the Terran Compliance Accord. We reject all of it. We will not return our colonies. We will not reduce our fleet. We will not accept your observers. We will not pay tribute to anyone. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The silence was complete. Then the chamber exploded with noise. Thousands of alien voices shouted at once. Some screamed in anger. Others laughed at the absurdity. A few simply stared in disbelief. This had never happened. In 100,000 years, no species had ever said no. Zindalos raised his hand, and slowly the chamber grew quiet again. He studied the human woman with new interest. You do not seem to understand your position, he said. You are one small species. You have 600 ships. The Council has millions. We could erase your entire civilization in a single day. Elena nodded. You could try. This is not a negotiation. Zindalos said, his voice growing hard. This is a command. If you refuse, there will be consequences. economic sanctions, trade blockades, and if those fail, military intervention. Your worlds will burn, your people will scatter. Your name will be forgotten. Elena took a step forward. She was tiny compared to the vast chamber. She was nothing compared to the ancient powers that surrounded her. But she did not look small. She looked like a woman who had made her decision and would not change it. High Arbiter, she said, you have made a mistake today. You looked at humanity and saw a young species. A weak species. A species that could be controlled. But you did not look closely enough. She gestured to one of her aides, who activated a holographic display. Images began to float in the air around her platform. Images from Earth's history. We have been fighting since before we could write, Elena said. We fought with stones. Then with swords. Then with guns. Then with bombs that could destroy cities. We fought each other for land, for resources, for ideas, for pride, and sometimes for no reason at all. The images showed ancient battles, medieval wars, modern conflicts, nuclear explosions. The alien delegates watched in silence. Every time someone told us to kneel, we refused. Every time someone said we could not win, we fought anyway. We lost sometimes. We lost often. But we never stopped. We never surrendered. We never gave up. Elena looked directly at Zindalos. You have ruled this galaxy for 100,000 years because no one ever challenged you. You forgot what it means to face an enemy who would rather die than submit. We have not forgotten. It is in our blood. It is in our bones. It is who we are. She picked up the datapad containing the accord and dropped it on the floor. Send your sanctions. Send your blockades. Send your fleets. Humanity will still be here when you arrive, and we will not kneel. She turned and walked toward the exit. Her small delegation followed her. The chamber remained silent as they left. After they were gone, Zindalos turned to his advisors. Monitor them. They will change their minds when they see our strength. But one advisor, a young intelligence officer from the Morvathi Collective, was not so sure. He had pulled up Earth's historical archives during the human speech. He was reading about something called World War II. Something called Vietnam. Something called the French Resistance. His skin had turned pale gray. His hands were shaking. High Arbiter, he said quietly. I do not think they will change their minds. Zindalos looked at him. Why not? The officer turned his screen so the High Arbiter could see. It showed humans fighting against impossible odds. Again and again. Century after century. Never stopping. Never surrendering. Because, the officer whispered, I do not think they know how. On her ship leaving Nexus Prime, Elena Vasquez stood at the window and watched the great station grow smaller. Her aide approached her. Director, do you think they will really attack? Elena nodded slowly. Yes. They have to. We challenged everything they believe in. Then why did we refuse? We cannot win against them. Not conventionally. Elena smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew what was coming and had accepted it. We refused because some things matter more than winning. Freedom matters. Dignity matters. The right to choose your own path matters. And besides, she turned to face her aide. Humans have never been very good at conventional. She walked toward the bridge of her ship. Send a message to Earth. Tell them to wake up. Project Prometheus. Tell them the Council has given us 72 hours. Her aide's eyes widened. 72 hours is not very long. Elena's smile grew wider. It is for us. We work best under pressure. The ship jumped to faster than light speed, carrying humanity's answer back to Earth. War was coming, and humanity was ready to remind the galaxy why that was a terrible idea. 3 months had passed since humanity said no. The Galactic Council had responded exactly as Elena Vasquez predicted. First came the sanctions. Human ships were banned from every spaceport in the galaxy. Human goods were seized. Human citizens on alien worlds were sent home. Then came the blockade. 12,000 warships now surrounded the Sol system. They formed a perfect sphere around humanity's home. Nothing could get in. Nothing could get out. The ships came from a dozen different species, but most belonged to the Velkari Dominion. Their silver vessels were massive, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Grand Admiral Cyrith commanded the fleet from his flagship, the Eternal Conquest. He was the greatest military mind the Velkari had produced in 10,000 years. He had crushed rebellions on 100 worlds. He had never lost a battle. He stood on his bridge and looked at the small blue planet on his screen. Earth. Home of humanity. Soon to be nothing but ash and memory. Open a channel to the humans, he commanded. His communication officer obeyed. Within seconds, the face of Fleet Admiral Marcus Okonkwo appeared on the screen. He was a tall man with dark skin and gray hair. His uniform was simple. His expression was calm. Admiral Okonkwo, Cyrith said. I am Grand Admiral Cyrith of the Velkari Dominion. I command the coalition fleet surrounding your system. I know who you are, Okonkwo replied. What do you want? Cyrith felt a flash of irritation. Other species would have shown fear. They would have begged. This human spoke to him like an equal. You have 72 hours to surrender, Cyrith said. Accept the Terran Compliance Accord. Disarm your fleet. Open your planet to Council inspection. If you refuse, we will destroy every ship you have. Then we will burn your colonies one by one. Then we will bombard Earth until nothing lives on its surface. Okonkwo listened without changing his expression. When Cyrith finished, the human admiral was quiet for a moment. 72 hours? He finally said. Yes. Thank you for the deadline. Okonkwo smiled slightly. You have made a critical error, Admiral. You have given us a deadline. Humans work best under pressure. The communication ended. Cyrith stared at the blank screen. His officers exchanged nervous glances. They had expected panic. They had expected surrender. Instead, the human had thanked them. He is bluffing, Cyrith said finally. They have 600 ships against our 12,000. There is no strategy that can overcome those odds. His tactical officer nodded. Our victory is certain, Grand Admiral. Cyrith settled into his command chair. We wait. In 72 hours, they will break. But on Earth, no one was breaking. When news of the blockade reached the planet, something strange happened. Something the Council had not predicted. Instead of panic, there was anger. Instead of division, there was unity. Old enemies forgot their differences. Nations that had argued for centuries now worked together. Factories that made consumer goods switched to building weapons. Scientists who had competed for funding now shared everything. The entire planet transformed in days. Marcus Okonkwo stood in the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains. Around him, thousands of officers worked at their stations. Screens covered every wall, showing the enemy fleet, human ship positions, and something else. Something the Council knew nothing about. Project Prometheus. Status report, Okonkwo said. His second-in-command, Captain Sarah Chen, approached with a datapad. The Prometheus platforms are coming online now. We have 700 drone carriers ready. The new Defiance-class ships will be combat-ready in 48 hours. The asteroid defense grid is fully charged. And the weapon? Chen smiled. Ready. They will never see it coming. Okonkwo nodded. When the Council had sent their warnings, humanity had not been idle. They had been preparing. Hidden in asteroids, buried on moons, scattered across the system were weapons and ships that no scan had detected. The Council thought humanity had 600 ships. They were wrong. The hours passed. On the coalition fleet, soldiers prepared for an easy victory. On Earth, humans prepared for the fight of their lives. When the 72 hours ended, Grand Admiral Cyrith opened another channel. Your time has ended, he said. Surrender now or face destruction. Admiral Okonkwo appeared on screen again. This time, he was standing. Behind him, his bridge crew was moving with purpose. Grand Admiral, Okonkwo said, I have a message for you and everyone in your fleet. Speak. You came here thinking this would be easy. You came here expecting us to kneel. But we have spent 3 months getting ready for you. We have built things you cannot imagine. We have planned strategies you have never seen. You think you know war. You do not. Humans invented war. We have been practicing it for 50,000 years. You are about to learn why the rest of the galaxy should leave us alone. The screen went dark. For a moment, nothing happened. Cyrith was about to give the order to attack when his tactical officer screamed, Grand Admiral, new contacts, thousands of them. The main screen changed to show the sensor data. Red dots were appearing everywhere. From asteroids. From moons. From places that had scanned as empty rock. Ships were launching. Weapon platforms were activating. Drone swarms were deploying. Where did these come from? Cyrith demanded. Our scans showed nothing. They were hidden, shielded somehow. We never saw them. The numbers on the screen kept climbing. Human ships were pouring out of hiding places all across the system. The Coalition had expected 600 ships. They were facing nearly 2,000, plus weapons platforms, plus drone swarms, plus things their sensors could not even identify. All ships, attack formation, Cyrith shouted. Destroy them before they organize. But the humans were already organized. They had been waiting. They had been ready. The first wave of human drones hit the Coalition fleet like a hammer. Millions of small machines, each carrying a small explosive, swarmed toward the alien ships. Point defense weapons fired desperately, destroying thousands of drones, but thousands more got through. They hit shields. They hit engines. They hit weapon systems. Then the human ships attacked. They did not fight like any species the Coalition had seen. They did not form neat lines. They did not follow predictable patterns. They attacked in groups of 5 or 10, striking fast, and then retreating. They used asteroids for cover. They fired from unexpected angles. They did things that made no tactical sense, until suddenly they made perfect sense. Coalition ships began to explode. Cyrith watched in horror as 3 of his cruisers disappeared in balls of fire. A human destroyer had flown directly between them, taking hits from all 3, then detonated its own reactor at the last second. The explosion destroyed all 4 ships. They are insane, his aide whispered. That pilot killed himself to destroy 3 of our ships. More reports came in. A human frigate had rammed a Coalition carrier. Human fighters were flying into gun emplacements, sacrificing themselves to create openings for other ships. A small human shuttle had attached itself to a Velkari battleship and detonated, crippling its engines. Why do they do this? Cyrith demanded. Why do they throw their lives away? His tactical officer shook his head. I do not know, Grand Admiral. Our soldiers would never sacrifice themselves like this. It serves no logical purpose, but it did serve a purpose. Every sacrifice created chaos. Every death opened a door. The Coalition fleet, trained for ordered battle, could not adapt to enemies who treated their own lives as weapons. Hours passed. The battle raged. The Coalition was still winning by numbers, but the cost was far higher than anyone had predicted. For every human ship destroyed, they took 2 or 3 enemy ships with them. Then came the moment that changed everything. A single human frigate, badly damaged, its shields gone, flew directly at Cyrith's flagship. Point defense weapons hit it again and again. It should have been destroyed, but it kept coming. Evasive action, Cyrith shouted, but the eternal conquest was too big, too slow. The frigate hit the flagship's shields at full speed. The impact was massive. The shields flickered and failed. Then the frigate's reactor exploded. The explosion tore through the flagship's hull. Systems failed. Lights went dark. Cyrith was thrown to the floor as his ship shuddered. When he stood up, alarms were screaming. His bridge was filled with smoke. Officers were shouting damage reports. Main engines are offline. Shield generators destroyed. Hull breaches on 12 decks. The eternal conquest was crippled. Not destroyed, but broken. Cyrith looked at the battle map. His fleet was still fighting. They would still win. But the cost. The terrible cost. His aide approached him. "Grand Admiral, they are insane. No species fights like this." Cyrith watched another human ship sacrifice itself to destroy a coalition destroyer. He thought about what he had seen. The reckless courage. The willingness to die. The absolute refusal to surrender. "No," he said quietly. "They are not insane. They simply do not fear death the way we do. They see something worth dying for. We see only victory and defeat. That is why they are dangerous. That is why we should have left them alone." The battle continued. Neither side would surrender. Neither side would retreat. But across the galaxy, other species were watching. They saw the small human fleet standing against impossible odds. They saw humans dying rather than kneeling, and some of them began to wonder if they had been kneeling for too long. The war was 6 weeks old, and the galaxy was watching. Every species with access to communications had seen the footage. Human ships ramming into enemy vessels. Human soldiers fighting to the last breath. Human pilots flying into certain death with smiles on their faces. The broadcasts spread from world to world, translated into 1,000 languages. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council was in chaos. High Arbiter Zindalos stood at the center of the Great Chamber. His 6 eyes were tired. He had not slept in days. Around him, delegates screamed at each other. The perfect order that had lasted for 100,000 years was falling apart. "This is your fault," a Velkari delegate shouted at an Ixtharan representative. "Your ships were supposed to support our flank. Instead, they retreated. Our ships retreated because your admiral led them into a trap." The Ixtharan shot back. "The humans knew exactly where your fleet would be. Someone told them." "Are you calling us traitors?" "I am calling you incompetent." The argument grew louder. Other delegates joined in. The chamber became a storm of accusations and anger. Zindalos raised his hand for silence. Slowly, reluctantly, the chamber grew quiet. "Fighting among ourselves serves no purpose," he said. "The humans are the enemy. We must remain united." A delegate from a smaller species stood up. Her name was Vorith, and she represented the Thalani Consortium. Her people were traitors, not warriors. They had joined the Council 50,000 years ago, and had always obeyed. "High Arbiter," she said, "how much longer will this war continue? We were promised a quick victory. Instead, the blockade has cost us thousands of ships. The humans refuse to break. They are even winning some battles now." "The humans will be defeated," Zindalos said firmly. "It is only a matter of time." "But how much time?" Vorith pressed. "And how many more ships will we lose? My people have already contributed 40 vessels to this war. We cannot afford to lose more." "The Thalani must do their part," a Velkari delegate snapped. "We all must sacrifice." Vorith turned to face him. Something had changed in her eyes. Something hard. "The Velkari have sacrificed nothing," she said. "You send other species to fight, while your own fleets stay safe in your home systems. You call this war a council matter, but it serves only Velkari interests. The humans never threatened the Thalani. They never threatened anyone until you demanded their submission." The chamber erupted again. Some delegates shouted support for Vorith. Others defended the Velkari. For the first time in memory, the council was truly divided. Zindalos watched the chaos with growing fear. He had seen this before. Thousands of years ago, long before he became High Arbiter. There had been another moment like this, a moment when the council's unity began to crack. It had led to a civil war that lasted a century, but that war had been between major powers. This was different. This was caused by something far more dangerous: hope. Across the galaxy, subject races were beginning to ask questions. The Rylothi, a warrior species that had been conquered and disarmed 10,000 years ago, had seen the human broadcasts. They had seen a species stand up to the council and refuse to kneel. For the first time in millennia, they remembered what it felt like to have pride. On their homeworld, secret meetings were being held. Weapons that had been hidden for generations were being dug up from beneath ancient temples. Young Rylathi warriors were training in hidden valleys. They were not alone. The Morvathi Collective had always served as the Council's intelligence network. They knew secrets that could destroy empires. They had used those secrets to serve the powerful. But now, watching the humans fight, some Morvathi began to wonder if there was another way. A Morvathi intelligence officer, named Jril, made a decision that would change history. He sent a secret message to Earth. I have information you need. Fleet positions, communication codes, weakness in the coalition command structure. In exchange, I ask for asylum for myself and my family. We no longer wish to serve masters who fear freedom. Admiral Okonkwo received the message personally. He discussed it with Director Vasquez. This could be a trap, Okonkwo said. It could be, Vasquez agreed. But the Morvathi have no reason to trap us. We are already their enemy. And if this information is real, it could save millions of lives. You want to accept? Vasquez nodded. I want to do more than accept. I want to broadcast our answer to the entire galaxy. She drafted a message. It was short. It was simple. And it was the most dangerous thing humanity had ever sent. To all species of the Galactic Council. Humanity did not start this war. We only refused to kneel. We fight now because we have no choice. But we do not fight against you. We fight against those who would control us all. The Council calls itself a union of equals. We have seen your treaties. We know the truth. We know which species commands and which species kneels. We know about the Rylathi, disarmed and humiliated. We know about the Thalani, taxed into poverty. We know about dozens of species who were conquered and forced to serve. Humanity kneels to no one. And we believe that no species should kneel to another. If any of you are tired of kneeling, you do not have to fight beside us. You do not have to join our cause. Just stop fighting for them. Walk away. Refuse. Say no. That is all it takes. One word. No. We said it. Look where we are now. Still standing. Still fighting. Still free. If we can do it, so can you. The message was broadcast across every communication channel in the galaxy. It reached 1 billion worlds in a single day. The effect was immediate. On Nexus Prime, 17 species declared neutrality and withdrew their fleets from the coalition. They did not join humanity. They simply stopped fighting. For many of them, it was the first independent decision they had made in thousands of years. On the Rylathi homeworld, the secret rebellion became public. Warriors who had been training in hiding revealed themselves. They seized 3 orbital shipyards before Council forces could respond. The first Rylathi warship in 10,000 years launched into space. The Morvathi Collective split in 2. Half remained loyal to the Council. The other half, led by Officer Jril, defected to Earth. They brought with them everything they knew. Fleet positions, communication codes, the names of every Council spy in human space, and on 100 other worlds, statues of Council founders were torn down. Flags were burned. Governors were overthrown. Zindalos received report after report of rebellion and chaos. Each one was worse than the last. The Velkari Dominion was sending troops to suppress the Rylathi, but that left fewer ships for the war against humanity. The Ixtharan hegemony was demanding more resources, threatening to withdraw if they did not receive them. The High Arbiter called an emergency session of the Council. We are facing a crisis, he told the remaining delegates. Not just from the humans, but from within. Species that have been loyal for millennia are questioning our authority. We must act quickly and decisively. A Velkari delegate stood. We should increase the punishment for rebellion. Make examples of the traitors. Burn the Rylathi homeworld. Show everyone what happens to those who defy us. And how will we do that? Another delegate asked. Our fleets are committed against the humans. We do not have enough ships to fight multiple wars. Then we must sue for peace with the humans, someone suggested. End the war. Focus on maintaining internal order. Sue for peace? The Velkari delegate laughed bitterly. They will demand terms we cannot accept. They will want us to release our subject species. They will want to destroy everything we have built. Then, what do you suggest? Silence fell over the chamber. For the first time in 100,000 years, the Galactic Council had no answer. In her office on Earth, Director Vasquez read the intelligence reports from her new Morvathi allies. She learned about the chaos spreading across the galaxy. She learned about the rebellions and the fear. We did this, she said quietly. We broke their unity. Admiral Okonkwo stood beside her. We gave people hope. Hope is dangerous to tyrants. What happens now? Okonkwo looked at the star map on her wall. It showed the galaxy with all its thousands of species. For 100,000 years, it had been controlled by a handful of ancient powers. Now, for the first time, it was changing. Now, he said, we finish what we started. We do not have to defeat the Council. We just have to hold on long enough for their own subjects to defeat them. Vasquez nodded slowly. Can we hold on? Humans have been holding on against impossible odds since before we had fire. It is what we do. She smiled despite the exhaustion and the fear. Then let us continue doing what we do. She pressed a button on her desk. Her face appeared on screens across human space. People of Earth and all human colonies. The enemy is weakening. Not because of our strength alone, but because freedom is spreading. Species that were slaves for 10,000 years are beginning to fight. They are beginning to hope. We started this. We cannot stop now. Every day, we hold on. Another world sees what is possible. Every battle we survive, another species finds its courage. This is not just our war anymore. It is everyone's war, and we are going to win. Across human space, people heard her words. They were tired. They were scared. But they were not broken. They would never be broken. And somewhere in the depths of space, on a Rylathi warship newly launched from the captured shipyards, a warrior captain heard the human broadcast. She stood on her bridge and looked at her crew. They were the first free Rylathi in 10,000 years. Plot a course for the front lines, she said. We go to fight beside the humans. Her crew obeyed without hesitation. The galaxy was changing. The old order was dying. And humanity had shown everyone the way. 6 months. The war had lasted 6 months. In that time, everything had changed. The coalition fleet that had once surrounded Earth was gone. Not destroyed entirely, but broken. Scattered. What remained had retreated to Velkari space to regroup. The blockade had failed. Humanity was free. But Admiral Marcus Okonkwo was not satisfied with defense. He stood in the command center on Mars, looking at a holographic map of the galaxy. Around him, his staff worked at dozens of stations. Human officers, Morvathi intelligence analysts, even a few Rylathi warriors who had joined the cause. We have an opportunity, Okonkwo said. The enemy is divided. The Velkari are fighting the Rylathi rebellion. The Ixtharan are threatening to withdraw. A dozen smaller species have already left the coalition. If we strike now, while they are weak, we can end this war. Captain Chen approached with a datapad. Our fleet is ready, Admiral. 1,800 combat ships. Plus the new drone carriers. Plus the Rylathi volunteers. The swarm is ready? Chen smiled. Ready and hungry. The swarm. It was humanity's newest weapon. And it was terrifying. Self-replicating drones by the billions. Each one small. Each one carrying a tiny explosive. Alone, they were nothing. Together, they were a tide of metal and fire that could overwhelm any defense. Okonkwo had sent a small test swarm against a coalition patrol 2 weeks ago. The enemy ships had fired their point defense weapons continuously. They had destroyed millions of drones, but millions more kept coming. In the end, all 12 coalition ships were gone. The swarm had lost 90% of its units. It had rebuilt itself within a day. Choose our target, Okonkwo said. Where do we hit them? His tactical officer highlighted a region of space, the Velkari supply lines. They run through this system. Every ship, every weapon, every piece of food heading to their fleets passes through here. If we cut these lines, their forces near Rylathi space will be starved. Defenses, heavy. Orbital stations. Minefields. A permanent garrison fleet. They know the supply lines are important. Okonkwo studied the map. The system was deep in Velkari territory. To reach it, his fleet would have to pass through hostile space. They would be far from home. Far from help, he smiled. Perfect. They will never expect us to attack there. They think we are still licking our wounds. Prepare the fleet. We leave in 6 hours. On Nexus Prime, High Arbiter Zindalos received word of the human fleet's movement 2 days too late. By the time his intelligence network tracked them, they had already crossed half the distance to the Velkari supply lines. He called an emergency meeting with the Velkari military command. How did they get so far without detection? He demanded. A Velkari admiral answered grimly. The Morvathi traitors. They gave the humans our sensor coverage maps. They know exactly where our eyes cannot see. Can we intercept them? We are trying. But our nearest fleet is 3 days away. The humans will reach the supply lines first. Zindalos felt a cold fear in his heart. What happens if they succeed? The admiral was silent for a long moment. Our forces fighting the Rylathi will run out of supplies within 2 weeks. They will have to retreat or surrender. And if they retreat, the Rylathi will reclaim their homeworld. Other subject species will see this. They will be encouraged. The rebellions will spread. Zindalos closed his 6 eyes. He had ruled the council for 3,000 years. He had seen species rise and fall. He had always believed that the old order was eternal. That the great powers would always control the galaxy. That the small and weak would always kneel. He had been wrong. The battle for the supply lines was short and brutal. Admiral Okonkwo's fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel exactly where they planned. The coalition garrison was caught off guard. They had expected the humans to remain defensive, to protect their home. They had not imagined that these young, primitive creatures would attack the heart of Velkari power. The swarm struck first. Billions of drones poured from their carrier ships, spreading across space like a living cloud. The garrison fleet opened fire. Explosions lit up the void. Drones died by the millions, but the swarm was not meant to destroy the fleet. It was meant to distract them. While the garrison focused on the drones, Okonkwo's warships attacked from 3 directions at once. Human tactics were unlike anything the coalition had trained for. They did not form lines. They did not hold positions. They flowed like water, striking weak points, retreating before counterattacks, then striking again somewhere else. The garrison commander tried to organize a defense. But every time he moved ships to face one threat, 2 more appeared elsewhere. His communications were jammed. His sensors were overwhelmed by drone signatures. He was fighting blind against an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. Within 4 hours, the garrison fleet was destroyed. The orbital stations were captured. The supply lines were cut. Okonkwo stood on the bridge of his flagship, the UES Defiance, and watched the last enemy ship surrender. Around him, his crew was celebrating, but he remained calm. This is just the beginning, he told them. We have cut their supply lines. Now we have to hold them. They will send everything they have to retake this system. Captain Chen approached. Admiral, we are receiving a communication. It is from the Ixtharan hegemony. They want to talk. Okonkwo raised an eyebrow. The Ixtharan? They are coalition members. They were coalition members. The message says they want to discuss separate peace terms. Okonkwo and Director Vasquez received the Ixtharan ambassador via holographic communication. His name was Grand Prefect Corval, and he was the second most powerful person in the hegemony. We will be direct, Corval said. The Ixtharan hegemony no longer believes this war can be won. The Velkari led us into a conflict they cannot finish. We do not wish to be destroyed alongside them. Vasquez studied the alien carefully. What do you propose? Immediate withdrawal from the coalition. Complete neutrality in your conflict with the Valkyrie. In exchange, we request trade agreements and a guarantee that humanity will not attack Ixtharan territory. That is acceptable, Vasquez said. But we want more. Corval's expression shifted. What more? Release your subject species. All of them. Any species under Ixtharan control must be given independence. The ambassador was silent for a long moment. Vasquez could see the conflict in his eyes. The hegemony had ruled over a dozen smaller species for thousands of years. Those species provided labor, resources, soldiers. Giving them up would weaken the hegemony significantly. That is a heavy price, Corval finally said. Freedom always costs something, Vasquez replied. But consider the alternative. If you stay in this war, you will lose everything. The Valkyrie will fall eventually. They cannot fight us, and their own rebellions at the same time. When they fall, everyone who stood with them will fall too. But if you leave now, if you show the galaxy that you chose freedom over empire, you may survive. You may even prosper. Corval thought for a long time. Then he nodded slowly. The hegemony accepts your terms. We will begin releasing our subject species immediately. The communication ended. Vasquez turned to Okonkwo. That was easier than I expected, she said. They are afraid, Okonkwo replied. And they should be. The old galaxy is dying. A new one is being born. News of the Ixtharan withdrawal spread across the galaxy like fire. With the hegemony gone, the coalition lost 40% of its remaining strength. The Valkyrie were suddenly alone. Their allies had abandoned them. Their subjects were rebelling. Their supply lines were cut. Grand Admiral Cyrith, still commanding what remained of the Valkyrie fleet, was recalled to his homeworld. He arrived to find his government in chaos. The council demanded answers. His superiors demanded miracles, and Cyrith had nothing to give them. He stood before the Valkyrie High Command, his uniform torn, his face exhausted. We cannot win this war, he told them. Not anymore. The humans have broken our coalition. They have inspired our subjects to revolt. Even if we destroy their entire fleet tomorrow, we cannot undo what they have started. The galaxy has changed. We must change with it, or we will be destroyed. The High Command refused to listen. They called him a coward. They stripped him of his rank. They appointed a new admiral to lead the fleet, but Cyrith was right, and within a week, everyone would know it. On Earth, Director Vasquez stood before the United Nations General Assembly. Behind her, screens showed maps of the galaxy. Maps showing coalition territory shrinking. Maps showing rebellions spreading. Maps showing a new order emerging. 6 months ago, she said, the Galactic Council demanded our surrender. They told us we were too small, too young, too weak. They said resistance was useless. They said we should kneel and accept our place. We said no. Look at us now. Our fleet has broken their blockade. Our message has inspired a dozen species to seek freedom. The mightiest powers in the galaxy are falling because we showed everyone that it was possible to stand up, to refuse, to fight back. They thought our short lives made us weak. They were wrong. Our short lives make us urgent. Every moment matters. Every choice matters. Every fight matters. We do not have time to be conquered. We do not have time to wait for permission. We do not have time to kneel. The war is not over. The Valkyrie still fight. But they are alone now. Alone against us. Alone against everyone they have oppressed for 100,000 years. And alone, they cannot win. She paused. The assembly was silent. When this began, we fought for survival. Now we fight for something more. We fight for a galaxy where no species kneels to another. Where freedom is not earned but expected. Where the strong do not rule the weak, but stand beside them. That is what we are fighting for. That is what we will build when this is over. And we will win, because humans have never accepted any other option. The assembly rose to their feet. The applause was thunderous. And somewhere in the darkness of space, a Valkyrie diplomat prepared a ship for a journey to Earth. He carried no weapons. He carried no demands. He carried only a white flag. For the first time in galactic history, an elder race was coming to ask for terms. 1 year. The war had lasted exactly 1 year. It ended not with a great battle, but with a broadcast. Director Elena Vasquez sat in a small recording studio on Earth. Behind her was nothing but a plain wall and the flag of the United Earth government. No grand chamber, no impressive technology. Just a woman and her words. She looked into the camera and began to speak. To all species of the galaxy. 1 year ago, the Galactic Council demanded that humanity kneel. We refused. They sent their fleets to destroy us. We fought back. They tried to starve us into submission. We survived. They called us primitive, young, foolish. We proved them wrong. Now the war is over. The Valkyrie Dominion has surrendered. The coalition no longer exists. The Galactic Council, which ruled for 100,000 years, has collapsed. The galaxy has no master. Some of you may wonder what humanity wants now. Do we seek to replace the Council? Do we want to rule the galaxy ourselves? Do we plan to build our own empire? No. We have no interest in your empire. We have no interest in controlling you. We will not tell you how to live, what to believe, or whom to follow. That is not our way. That has never been our way. Here is what humanity offers instead. Friendship to those who want it. Trade with those who seek it. Alliance with those who need it. And a promise. If anyone ever tries to conquer you again, if anyone ever demands that you kneel, call us. We will come. We will stand beside you. We will help you fight. The old order is dead. What comes next is up to you. Govern yourselves. Build your own futures. Make your own choices. That is what freedom means. This message is the only thing humanity demands from this war. Remember it. Pass it to your children. Let every species in the galaxy know that there is a people who would rather die than kneel. And if anyone forgets, remind them why that matters. The broadcast ended. Within hours, it had reached every corner of the galaxy. On Nexus Prime, the Great Council Chamber was nearly empty. Only a few hundred delegates remained. Many seats that had been occupied for millennia were now abandoned. The species that once filled them had withdrawn, declared independence, or simply stopped participating. High Arbiter Zindalos stood at the center of the chamber for the last time. He was older now. The past year had aged him more than the previous 1,000. His 6 eyes were tired, and his body was weak. He addressed the remaining delegates. I have served this council for 3,000 years. In that time, I believed that our way was the right way, that the strong should guide the weak. That order was more important than freedom, that we were building something eternal. I was wrong. The humans showed us our mistake, not just through their strength, but through their example. They proved that a species that refuses to kneel cannot be conquered. They proved that freedom is more powerful than any fleet. They proved that the old ways were never as stable as we believed. Today, I resign as High Arbiter. The position no longer has meaning. The council we knew is gone. Something new will take its place. I hope it will be better than what we built. I hope it will learn from our failures. He stepped down from his platform. No one stopped him. No one argued. The chamber was silent as he walked away. Outside, he found a young Morvathi waiting for him. It was Officer Jril, the intelligence agent who had defected to Earth. High Arbiter, Jril said. I wanted to speak with you before you left. Zindalos looked at the young officer. You betrayed us. You gave our secrets to the humans. Yes, Jril admitted without shame. I did what I believed was right. The council was not what it pretended to be. We claimed to bring order, but we only brought control. We claimed to protect species, but we only protected our power. And you believe the humans are better? Jril considered the question. I believe they are different. They do not want to rule. They only want to be left alone. And when someone threatens them, they fight with everything they have. That is refreshing. After 100,000 years of schemes and manipulation, it is refreshing to meet a species that simply says what it means and does what it says. Zindalos was quiet for a moment. Then, he nodded slowly. Perhaps you are right. Perhaps we had forgotten what honesty looked like. He paused. What will you do now? I am returning to my people. Those of us who defected want to help build a new Morvathi society. One that does not survive through blackmail and secrets. That will not be easy. Jril smiled. Nothing worth doing is easy. The humans taught me that. The former High Arbiter watched the young officer walk away. Then he looked up at the stars that had once belonged to his council. They belonged to everyone now. Across the galaxy, the old powers fell one by one. The Velkari Dominion collapsed into civil war as different factions fought for control. Their empire, built over 50,000 years, broke apart in months. Where there had been one dominion, now there were 100 small states, each trying to find its own path. The Rylathi reclaimed their homeworld. For the first time in 10,000 years, they were free. Their warriors, who had trained in secret for generations, now defended their own people instead of serving foreign masters. A new Rylathi government was formed, and its first act was to send an ambassador to Earth. The Thalani Consortium, which had always been traders, found new markets opening everywhere. They no longer had to pay tribute to the Council. They no longer had to ask permission to trade. Their economy boomed as species across the galaxy sought partners instead of masters. And on 100 other worlds, statues of Council founders remained in the dust where they had fallen. New monuments rose in their place. Monuments to the species who had freed themselves. And some, just a few, dedicated to the humans who had shown them the way. Director Vasquez received an invitation to join a new organization. It called itself the Free Species Assembly. Unlike the old council, it had no arbiter, no master race, no hierarchy. Each species had one vote, regardless of size or power. Decisions required consensus. There were no penalties for disagreement. The assembly offered humanity a permanent seat. They wanted humans to help guide the new order. Vasquez declined. She sent a message explaining her decision. Humanity is honored by your invitation. But we cannot accept. We fought this war to escape from other species telling us what to do. We will not become the species that tells others what to do. We do not need a seat at anyone's table. We will build our own tables. We will trade with you, ally with you, work beside you. But we will not be above you. And we will not let you be above us. Govern yourselves. Trust yourselves. You do not need us to lead you. You only needed us to show you that leadership from above is not necessary. Humanity will be your friend, your partner, your defender if you call us, but never your ruler. Good luck building your new galaxy. We look forward to seeing what you create. Admiral Marcus Okonkwo stood on the observation deck of the UES Defiance. The ship was fully repaired now, its hull gleaming in the light of distant stars. Around it, the rebuilt human fleet patrolled the edges of human space. A young officer approached him. Lieutenant James Mbeki, fresh from the academy. Admiral, may I ask you a question? Okonkwo nodded. Go ahead. What happens now? The war is over. The council is gone. We won. But what comes next? Okonkwo looked out at the stars. He thought about the past year. The battles. The sacrifices. The friends he had lost. And the enemies he had defeated. Next, we keep being human. We explore. We build. We grow. We help those who need helping. We defend those who cannot defend themselves. And if someone else decides to challenge us, another empire, another council, Okonkwo smiled. It was a hard smile. The smile of a man who had seen too much death, but remained unbroken. Then we remind them why that is a bad idea. The same way we reminded the council, the same way we have reminded every enemy in our history. We fight. We adapt. We refuse to surrender. We do whatever it takes. And we win? Sometimes. Not always. But we never stop trying. That is the human way. We do not kneel. We do not give up. We do not accept defeat as final. And eventually, one way or another, we find a way forward. We find a way forward. Lieutenant Mbeki nodded slowly. He looked out at the stars with new understanding. I think I understand now, sir. Why the Council was so afraid of us. Why they tried so hard to make us submit. Why is that? Because we cannot be controlled. Not by threats, not by force, not by anything. We are too stubborn, too determined, too human. Okonkwo laughed. It was the first genuine laugh he had enjoyed in months. Exactly right, Lieutenant. Now get back to your station. We have a galaxy to protect. The young officer saluted and left. Okonkwo remained on the observation deck. Alone with the stars. He thought about the future. The challenges that would come. The threats that would rise. The enemies that would test humanity again and again. He was not worried. He had seen what humans could do when pushed. He had seen them fight against impossible odds. He had seen them refuse to break. Refuse to kneel. Refuse to accept anything less than freedom. Whatever came next, humanity would face it the same way they had faced everything else. Together, unbroken, defiant. And across the galaxy, in the languages of 1,000 species, a new phrase was spreading. A warning passed from parent to child. A lesson remembered by warriors and diplomats, and ordinary citizens alike. Never summon the humans, because they will say no, and then they will make you regret asking. In the darkness between the stars, the galaxy was healing. Old wounds were closing. New possibilities were opening. Species that had been enemies were becoming friends. Civilizations that had been slaves were learning to rule themselves. It was not perfect. It would never be perfect. There would be conflicts, disagreements, even small wars. Freedom was messy. Independence was hard, but for the first time in 100,000 years, the galaxy was truly free. And it had humanity to thank, not because humans had conquered anyone, not because they had built an empire, but because they had done something far more powerful. They had refused to kneel, and in doing so, they had shown everyone else that kneeling was always a choice. The war was over. The story was just beginning.